In this video we're making a knotted keyring to hold a lip balm. It's interchangeable as well, so you can easily slide this bead up and pop a different lip balm in or take it out and use it. So it fits a few different sizes in there easily. This is perfect for always keeping your lip balm on you when you have your keys. For our lip balm keyring, we need 4 40-inch lengths of 0.8mm polyester cotton thread. So we just measure out our 4 lengths and cut them to size. Now first up, we place all the ends together and follow it back down to the other ends, holding all those ends together so that we can follow it back down to the middle. Now in the middle here, we're going to tie all our threads in a simple overhand knot. So bringing them around to form a loop and bringing the tails through the loop, pulling that nice and tight. Now this will be our center knot at the bottom, so we're going to work our way up. So I find it's easiest to lay it down on the table with the knot in the center there. Then we grab one piece of twine out of each side of the knot. And in these threads here, we're going to tie another simple overhand knot. So bringing it around to form a loop and then pulling the tails through the loop. Pulling it down tight about 1 centimeter away from that center knot. Now on the other side, we can pull one twine out of each side of the knot and do the same again on this side. So another overhand knot, bringing those threads around to form a loop and bringing the tails through the loop. Pulling it down nice and tight about 1 centimeter away from that center knot so that it sits even with the knot on the opposite side. Now on the remaining cords on each side, so these 2 cords down here, we're going to tie another simple overhand knot, making a loop, bringing the tails through and pulling that knot down to about 1 centimeter from that center knot. Making sure it's nice and tight. And now on these remaining 2 cords, doing the same, another overhand knot and pulling it down 1 centimeter away so that it matches all the other knots on this first layer. Now you should have something that looks sort of like this with a cross shape and a knot on each of the 4 sides. So from here we're going to start to build our netting. So we want to grab one thread out of each pair that sits next to each other. And holding onto the center knot for tension, we're going to bring these 2 cords together and tie another simple overhand knot. Pulling that down about 1 centimeter from those previous knots and pulling it nice and tight. Now we can work our way around, tying knots in the cords that are sitting next to each other. So just holding on to that center knot for tension and grabbing one cord out of each pair, tying a simple overhand knot and pulling it down nice and tight, about the same distance away for all of your knots. So you can just work your way around. You should have 4 knots on this next layer as well. Taking one thread from each pair, holding onto that center knot and placing another overhand knot until you've done all 4 knots on this layer. It looks a little bit messy, but if you just take your time and figure out which cords go where, it's really quite simple. So this is my last one here, my last 2 cords that you can see they don't have that second knot on there. So holding on to that center knot and tying another simple overhand knot on these last 2 cords. Now you should start to see your netting forming and it should look quite even. So you can always untie and retie your knots if you're not happy with it as you go along. But you can see it's quite even and forms sort of a square shape as I pull those knots out. So now for the next layer, we just work our way around again, pulling one cord out of each of the pairs that sit next to each other. Then holding tension on that center knot at the base, we just work our way around for another layer, tying simple overhand knots on these 4 connections as well. Once you've done a few layers of knots and you can see a bit of length in your netting forming, then you can check it on your lip balm and just make sure it's on track. You don't want any holes that are big enough that your lip balm could fit through, so it's important to check that. And it also gives you an idea of how many knots you're going to have to do. So these holes up the top especially need to be smaller than your lip balm so that it can't slip through. Now we want knots all the way down to the base of our lip balm. So I've still got a way to go on my netting. I'm just going to continue this same technique, knotting the threads together with one out of each pair. So this here will be the 4th layer of knots. This here is 7 layers of knots on our netting. So you can see on our lip balm, we're getting a lot closer, but I still need a couple more layers just to come around the base. And this is 9 layers of knots. So you can see how this top layer comes just above the lip balm. That's going to hold it securely in place, so your lip balm can't fall out. Now we're going to bring all these threads into 2 groups and make a strap on each side. So I like to put a 4-strand round braid on each side. So I start with the 4 threads on one side, just placing it on a clip so I can do a little braid. So a 4-strand round braid is bringing the right cord under 2 and then back over 1, and then the left cord under 2, back over 1, right cord under 2, back over 1, left cord under 2, back over 1. I have another video on how to do a 4-strand round braid, I'll link it below. And so we just go ahead and do the same technique for the 4-strand round braid on both sides of our netting. Once you've done both your 4-strand round braids, just tie a little loose knot on the end, and then we're going to tie a whipping knot to secure it all in place. So you should have your little netting here that opens for your lip balm in the middle. Now we need a bead or something that's going to help to hold those cords together. So you need a bead that's got a big enough hole to fit both straps inside. So threading both of your braids inside and bringing that bead down close to your netting. Now you could just tie your ends in a knot, but I like to tie something a little bit tidier. So I just use a whipping knot and make a little loop on the end here that I'm going to be able to thread onto my keyring. So it's just basically a loop on the ends, and then we just pop it onto our keyring, and you can easily pop it on and off by just releasing the loop on the end. Now to make a nice tidy whipping knot to join our threads, we just make a little loop here and then overlap the cords, Now we need a length of about 30 centimeters of our 0.8 millimeter cord. And we start by bringing the end of the cord around back against itself to form a loop. So placing that on the part of your cords where they overlap, then we wrap this longer length of cord around all the cords in the middle there, wrapping it nice and tight and tidy. I do have another video showing a few more details of how to make a whipping knot, so I'll link that below as well. It's up to you how wide you wrap your whipping knot. I normally do it about 1 centimeter wide. Just make sure you don't wrap past this little loop on the left hand side. And once you've wrapped a nice tight whipping knot, you want to bring this thread end up through the loop on the left hand side. So making sure it comes through nice and tidy and then up the loop. Now this shorter tail on the right side end, we're going to pull that tight, and that's going to pull the loop tight and pull the cord just under and inside the whipping knot. So working with your threads a little bit, pulling on each end, making sure everything's really nice and tight and locked in place. We want this to be a really nice, tight, secure connection. Once you're happy with it, you can cut these threads off nice and short. And then I cinch them with a lighter to fuse them onto the knot and so that they don't fray or undo. Once you've done the whipping knot part, then we can cut these other ends off as well. And we're going to melt them with the lighter and singe them on as well, so that they're all nice and tidy and fused in place as well. So gently melting and tapping those until you're happy with them. And then you should be able to just place your keyring on. And then test it out placing a lip balm in as well, locking it into place with that bead. And there's your lip balm keyring.